Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do my May monthly favorites / recap video. And as always, let's just jump into it because I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about a lot of different things. So of course I want to start right away with my book of the month, i.e. the only book I read this month because, yeah, that's all I can handle at this point. And it is in fact an indie book, and that is Finding May by Jennifer Mormon. And this is a, what do I call it? What does she call it? It's a romance book that's set in the South. I believe it's set in Georgia? Sure, yeah. And this book is basically about May, who in the start of the book is an elderly woman who is invited back to the town of Mystic Water, where she fell in love with a doctor 30 years prior, and due to different circumstances, she had to leave and promised never to return to the town. A lot of the story is told through flashback, which definitely wasn't like jarring or anything. In fact, I felt like it was kind of interesting to see how the future and the past collided, where we see that she's invited back, and then we figure out what all happened in the past that made her not want to come back to Mystic Water. And then we see how it ends, where she eventually does return and sees the man that she loved, Oliver, and how the relationship basically concludes. I think one of the things I liked most about this book, well, there's a couple things that I liked, but one of those things is the fact that this isn't like, I don't know the word, I don't read a lot of romance, but some of the romance that I do read is very like heavy and controversial, and you have a lot of like dumb female characters or just really like asshole male characters that are supposed to be the love interest. But this didn't have any of that. May, the protagonist, I feel like is a strong female character without ever having to say it. She definitely has flaws. There are times when she's insecure about things, but she also has plenty of instances where she stands up for herself. Also, Oliver, at first he's presented as sort of almost like a too good to be true sort of character, but he in fact also has his flaws, and he's never really a jerk except for maybe like one or two occasions. So I really liked that there wasn't a lot of like huge conflict between the two of them, because that stuff just stresses me out to read. The main conflict, and no, this isn't really a spoiler, is that Oliver is getting a divorce from his current wife. And some people within the book, or I guess people reading it, might think, oh, May is just some homewrecker, but it's one of those things where it would be a lot worse if he was happily married and the other woman didn't have any idea that there's anything wrong with the relationship. That would make me really uncomfortable. Like, I just don't like reading about relationship drama. But in this case, Oliver's marriage is not a happy one, and he is in the process of divorce, so it's kind of like this weird gray area where it doesn't feel quite right, but it's not like the worst thing in the world. So there was definitely conflict, but it wasn't conflict that made me really uncomfortable and feel really gross. And the other thing I really liked is the way that Jennifer describes settings and details. I've never been to the South, and Mystic Water isn't a place that actually exists, but the way that it's described, every scene is so rich and detailed, and not in like a distracting way, but in a way that makes you feel like you're really there. And one of my favorite parts of the book is the bakery. I forget exactly what it's called. Yeah, this is me just hoping to flip to a random page that mentions the name, but whatever. There's a bakery in the book that is seen as this sort of magical place where if you eat certain desserts, then like certain things will happen to you, like you'll mend a friendship or repair a broken heart and stuff like that. But I just love the description of the food, and just the entire setting really made me want to visit this fictional town. So yes, I would definitely recommend this book if you like romance that isn't like super heavy, but is also gratifying in the end. Okay, so my next category is going to be movies, and like last month, I have quite a few movies. I don't want this channel to become just like a movie review channel, but I would love to review them more often because my husband and I watch a lot of movies. It's kind of like our weekend downtime thing to do. So I have my list right here. The first movie I have on the list is The Highwayman, which was a Netflix original film, I believe. And it's basically about Bonnie and Clyde, and specifically the two men and like other guys in the posse that hunted them down and eventually killed them. Hope that wasn't a spoiler. They've been dead for a while, so it shouldn't be a spoiler at this point. I think the movie was done really well. I don't know a whole lot about the actual story of Bonnie and Clyde, but according to my husband, who I guess knows a little bit more, he said that it seemed fairly accurate. And they did show, like, real pictures and footage and stuff like that of Bonnie and Clyde after they got caught and, you know, the characters who were pursuing them. So it did seem to match up quite a bit. But this story is mostly about cat and mouse. It's really about the two men, I don't remember their names, and I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head who the actors were. I gave this movie, I say 3 stars because I wasn't overwhelmingly amazed by it, but it was definitely interesting from a historical standpoint, and I was interested in learning about Bonnie and Clyde, and you never see anything from Bonnie and Clyde's perspective, which I guess makes sense because we probably didn't know a whole lot about what they were doing. I mean, maybe friends and family did. So the only information we really know about where they are throughout the movie is based on their friends and family who are mostly hiding them and trying to cover for them. So it was a little bit of like detective work, and there were some chase scenes. It was just kind of an interesting look at how these sort of, I don't know, underdogs, I guess they were, managed to catch Bonnie and Clyde. The next movie I watched was called The Fundamentals of Caring, and I don't think this was a Netflix original film, but I did watch it on Netflix. I think it was described as like a buddy film, like a buddy comedy drama type thing, and it's also a road trip film if you like watching those. So basically there is a man, I believe it's Paul Rudd, who has kind of like a troubled past, and he becomes a caretaker for a disabled young boy, teenage boy. I think he's a teenager. He's pretty smart mouth, so I would assume that he's a teenager. And basically this kid has been completely difficult for every caretaker he's ever had and just gives everyone a hard time, so they all quit, but this guy's just like, I'm not going to take his shit, and I really want this job, so I'm just going to deal with it. And so the kid is, I forget what he has. He's wheelchair bound, and he's also afraid to leave the house. I can't remember the name for that either. This is just not my day for remembering, like, specific terms and sounding like a smart human being. Whatever. But due to his anxiety and his physical handicap, he can't really leave the house, but he has this dream to see the world's largest blank, like random things, like the world's largest cow, the world's largest hole in the ground, and that ends up being their final destination or where they want to end up. So they basically want to cross the country, seeing all these world's largest things on his map, and eventually ending up at the world's largest pit or hole in the ground thing. Throughout the trip, we see them constantly butting heads, but also bonding and becoming better friends and figuring things out about each other, and they pick up some hitchhikers, I guess you'd call them. They pick up some other people along the way. One is a very smart-mouthed, sarcastic girl who becomes the love interest for the teenage boy, and the other is a super sweet pregnant woman, and the 4 of them just kind of end up doing this cross-country road trip. I feel like they wanted to be a very, like, inspiring movie, and I guess it kind of was, but for me, it was just funny and quirky, and it was cool seeing, like, a road trip movie, if you're into those things, like I am. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It wasn't, like, the world's best movie. I wasn't crying at the end, and there were a few things that were kind of predictable, but I really did think it was funny, and the best part to me was the dialogue between the characters, especially the caretaker and the teenage boy. They were just constantly, like, giving each other shit, and it was really funny to watch. The next movie that we watched this month was Wedding Crashers. At this point, I feel like this movie's kind of a classic. It's a comedy about 2 guys who crash weddings, and they just want to live it up and be frivolous and just get drunk and party and have sex with women, and of course, one of them ends up falling in love with someone that he met at a wedding. And yeah, it's a romantic comedy. It's definitely a little bit, I guess you could say, vulgar. I mean, there's nudity in it. They talk about sex. They're always getting drunk. Whatever. It's funny. And I feel like it's one of those movies that I shouldn't have to talk that much about because it's kind of iconic in some ways. Like, people quote this movie a lot. I've quoted this movie without even having seen it. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars because it was really funny. I just talked so fast to that. My voice is going already. That's what happens when you never talk. You talk for like 10 minutes and your voice just gives out. So the next movie that we watched was the Trailer Park, I think it's just called Trailer Park Boys the Movie. I think there's a lot of Trailer Park Boys movies. So Trailer Park Boys was a show. I believe it's a Canadian show. The characters and I think the actors are Canadian. So it was a comedy show that was very low budget at the beginning, and you could tell because it was just the actors like filming each other. It's pretty funny. And it's about these 3 white trash guys living in a trailer park, and they're constantly trying to come up with ways to get rich and to try to like better themselves, but at the same time they also love living like the trailer park lifestyle. And as someone who, I mean, I didn't grow up in a trailer park, I grew up in a double-wide trailer, but as someone who is almost Canadian, let's say that, and who grew up as a redneck, I just really like things that have to do with like rednecks, especially Canadian ones. I also really love the Red Green Show, but I didn't watch that this month or anything, so I won't talk about that. The thing is that Trailer Park Boys in general is a kind of quirky, vulgar, random, funny show, and the movie was basically the same thing. It was just kind of like a long episode of Trailer Park Boys, and yeah, it was basically them trying to get rich by stealing coins, stealing change out of parking meters and stuff like that, and of course they're always getting pursued by the trailer park manager and these other people and the cops, and they're always in and out of jail, but they kind of enjoy being in jail. It might not be humor that's for everyone, but I really like it, and after watching the entire series, which should be on Netflix, because it started off very, you could tell, low budget, but eventually Netflix did pick it up. I think it was years after the original series had started, and you can tell because all the actors are much older and some of them aren't even there anymore, but if you like kind of vulgar, weird, redneck humor, you can watch the show, and sure, watch the movies. I gave it 4 stars because I'm biased, because I really like the show. Not everyone would. I think a lot of people would give it maybe 3 stars, but I'm biased, so I'm giving it 4. Alright, the last movie that we watched in the month of May was Good Will Hunting. And again, this is a classic drama. It stars Matt Damon, who is a really, really mathematically smart kid who came from a really rough upbringing, and he's basically just kind of been a slacker his whole life, even though he has so much potential. A math professor at a college, was at MIT, realizes that he has a lot of potential and sets off to find a therapist who can set him straight so that he doesn't just end up in jail and waste all of his potential and smarts. And that's where Robin Williams comes in, who plays the therapist, who is like the only therapist who really gets through to him and doesn't take any of his shit. Yeah, there were some funny parts, but it is mostly a drama, and it was a good one. I mean, I didn't think it was perfect in every way. It felt a bit dated to me, which I guess makes sense because it seemed like a early 2000s movie? Let's see. Alright, it came out in 1997, so yeah, it felt a bit dated, but I liked it. I mean, it was a good movie, and I believe I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. Not a perfect movie, but I think I teared up a little bit, so that gets some extra points, I suppose. So the next category in my monthly recap / favorites is TV shows. I only have one that is new-ish. That's Jack Ryan. I haven't been watching it super closely. It's more my husband's interest because he loves Tom Clancy, and Jack Ryan is a character from the, I believe they call it the Ryanverse, which is basically Tom Clancy's series of books that involve Jack Ryan and all these other things. I've only watched 2 episodes so far. Oh, Amazon original. It's actually an Amazon original. I almost said Netflix. It's a thriller that is about Jack Ryan, who's an up-and-coming CIA analyst, and he's thrust into some sort of field assignment that involves Iraq? Afghanistan? The Middle East. Somewhere. Like I said, I've only watched 2 episodes, so I'm not super into what's going on exactly, but it does deal a lot with figuring out what terrorists are doing, trying to stop terrorists, and you do see things from the Jack Ryan American perspective and also things that are going on in the Middle East. So if you really like the CIA, stuff about war, stuff about stopping terrorists, then you might enjoy this. I can't really rate it just yet because I haven't watched that much of it, but I'm definitely interested, and if I happen to see my husband watching it, I'll probably pop in and watch it as well, which is what I've been doing so far. Okay, I'm gonna try really hard not to rush through this last 8 minutes like I always do, when all I need to do is just turn off the camera once it runs out and restart the thing. So, slow the fuck down. It's me talking to myself, not you guys. So my next and final category is the miscellaneous category, and I have 2 items in this category. The first one I have discovered recently, sorry for the crinkling, is Go Macro. Go Macro macro bars. I believe the company is called Go Macro, and they have like snack bars and protein bars. I think this particular one isn't a protein bar. I actually haven't tried this flavor yet. I'm always on the lookout for protein bars or like healthier versions of granola bars that aren't super high in sugar, but are high in protein and have more balanced macros, but don't taste like disgusting protein aftertaste. And that's kind of hard to do. However, sort of on a whim, I decided to try Go Macro bars, and they come in a lot of different flavors. And the thing that I like about them, this is going to sound weird, but they almost have a more bland flavor. And I don't mean they're flavorless, but they don't have that really strong protein aftertaste. I think the protein they usually use in the protein bars, how many times can I say protein in one sentence? Pea protein, I think. Like I said, I don't have one of the protein bars on me, so this isn't going to tell me. The thing that I do like about them, besides the taste, I do like it, even though it's not super strong, but it's also not disgusting in the sense of like the weird whey aftertaste. If you eat protein bars, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The thing that I like about them is they're meant to be filling. They're meant to, I think, balance out macros. I mean, that's why they freaking call them macro bars, I'm assuming. They're definitely filling, and they don't make me feel quite so guilty. Like, I don't really eat candy bars or anything, but I do like having granola bars, especially first thing in the morning before I take the dog for a walk. And one of the things I like about them, if this happens to appeal to you, they're vegan, they're gluten-free, non-GMO. They have all of these certifications on them. Here we go. They are certified organic, certified vegan, certified gluten-free, CRC Peruv? I don't know what that is. They're non-GMO project verified, certified clean, certified raw, and they have a stamp from the Sustainable Food Trade Association. So they're really meant to be very environmentally friendly as well as being relatively healthy for you, you know, especially when you compare them to other less healthy protein bars that claim to be healthy, or like candy bars and junk like that. I'm trying more often to find things that aren't, I mean, they don't have to be vegan, but that's a plus to me. I'm trying to eat more gluten-free things because I have IBS, and gluten can often mess with IBS symptoms. And I always try to find things that are more sustainable, green, eco-friendly, better for the environment, stuff like that. The one downside I will say to these is they are a bit expensive. I believe you can purchase one individual bar for around $2.30, $2.50, which to me is a bit much for one bar. You can also buy them on their website, like packs of 12, I believe, but they're still around like $34. So that's the one downside, is they're not the cheapest thing, but if having all of the organic, vegan, gluten-free, certified this and that is important to you, then I'd recommend them. Because I really do like the way they taste, and I like that they're trying so hard to be better for the environment. I guess that's the right word to use. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is a company. So the company is called Stan's. I believe they had a different title, but they like changed their marketing or something about them, but now they just refer to themselves as Stan's. Their website is shopstans.com. And so basically what they do is they're an organization that teams up with actors and public figures to create merchandise based on like that particular public figure or a particular show, and they create merchandise with really unique designs, and then a portion of the proceeds from each item purchased goes towards a specific charity chosen by the actor or public figure or company that they're representing. This particular shirt, I don't know if you guys can see it because I don't have any sort of way to look at myself, so I'm hoping you can see it. It's got a hashtag WWWD, which stands for What Would the Winchesters Do? And in parentheses it says probably start an apocalypse. If you don't know, I've probably said it a few times, I'm a fan of Supernatural, the TV show. It's one of my favorite shows. The actors from Supernatural have worked with Stans a lot for a lot of different campaigns, and I almost feel embarrassed to like admit that I've bought things like Supernatural themed merchandise quite a few times. I'm not going to show them all in this video because that would take too long and should be its own dedicated video itself. If you want to see that, if you do, let me know and I can share some of those things. Or maybe I'll just do it. I don't need your permission. So I suppose I'll just talk about this particular shirt. This shirt was created fairly recently. The campaign just ended and I only got this shirt like sometime last week. At first I thought the design was a little bit cliche, like the whole what would Jesus do, what would so-and-so do, what would the Winchesters do. And as soon as I heard the actor say that line on the particular episode, I knew immediately that that was going to become merchandise. I was just like, they're gonna put that on a t-shirt or something. I can just sense it. My marketing senses were tingling and I just knew that was gonna happen. But the thing is, I'm not angry about it because if you're a fan of the show and you watched it and felt inspired or changed in some way by it, that particular saying might actually appeal to you a lot or actually inspire you in some way, because the show does mean a lot to a lot of different people. I actually filmed a video about Supernatural and my thoughts about storytelling in general and what the show has meant to me and some other people, or lots of other people I should say. So future Marlow, how about you link that up in the cards? I think they're going to be over here. So if you guys want specifically to hear about the Supernatural phenomenon, check out that video. But the cool thing about this shirt, besides being sort of like an inspirational reminder for me and other people, is that proceeds from this shirt in particular went to an organization that develops creative writing programs for inner city or like troubled girls or something about that. I've tried earlier today to find the name of the organization, but the problem is that once a campaign ends on the Stan's website, they usually remove the product. So I couldn't go back and find the description to find the name of the company / organization that does these things. So that's the reason I bought this shirt in particular. Because yeah, I thought it was a cool shirt, a cool saying, an interesting idea, but I also really like the idea of supporting writing groups for girls, because as a writer, of course, I try to support organizations that help young people become better at creative writing or overcome their situations through creative writing, because writing has helped me a lot in so many different ways throughout my life. So as a writer and author, it would only make sense to support an organization and also buy merchandise for one of my favorite TV shows. So it was kind of like a win-win in my situation. I feel like I sound like I'm advertising. Like, I should have said beforehand, but I'm in no way sponsored by anyone. Anyone mentioned in this video, anyone mentioned in any previous favorites video. That's just one of those disclaimers that you're apparently supposed to say on YouTube, but I didn't. But I'm saying it now. So I'm not trying to like advertise. I'm just sharing things that I like. And I like the fact that there is a company that exists that creates really unique merchandise that is based on your favorite actors or your favorite shows or public figures or whatever, but also gives back. I don't think there's anything on this site, not that I've looked at every single item, the site's behind the camera, that's why I keep looking at it, but I don't think there's anything on here that doesn't in some way support some sort of organization. So if you are a fan of Supernatural, you could go on there now. There's still merchandise on there, and I'm sure they'll do more merchandise in the future. They've done so many different campaigns, like I couldn't even list them all. But there's also a lot of other shows that they do work with and other actors. I don't know all of them because I'm kind of only personally interested in Supernatural. And I've never also seen anything on here that's like really expensive. So it's not like you're going to be spending $100 on something. I don't actually remember how much the shirt cost, but it wasn't like outrageous. Alright, so I felt like I talk about that one for freaking ever. I feel like I talk about everything forever. When I was younger, I wanted to be a voice actor, but I would need to do some serious voice training because like 20 minutes of talking just makes my throat so sore. That's what happens when you're a quiet person and you don't really talk to people. Alright, so that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know if you have watched, read, experienced, eaten, worn, anything on this list, and let me know what you thought about it. If you'd like to keep up with me on my writing endeavors, I'll link all my social media accounts in the description below, as well as my self-published debut novel, Blood of Fire. So until next time, see ya! I really want to eat this gourmet mackerel. Thumbnail time! Corny smile time! Oh, that'll look pretty. Yeah, this is past its Best By date. Should I still eat it? Seems like the grocery store doesn't understand the FIFO method. Alright, that's all for now, folks.